The marble floors of First National echoed with each step as I made my way toward the private baking section. The familiar smell of leather and polish filled the air, reminding me of better days when I took such luxuries for granted. I hadn't expected to run into anyone I knew here, especially not her. "Well, well, Tyler?" A voice dripping with false sweetness stopped me in my tracks. "Don't tell me you came here to see me. Didn't I make myself clear about staying away?" The click of designer heels against marble grew closer. "And what's someone like you doing in this bank anyway? Oh, are you applying for the janitor position?" I turned slowly, coming face to face with Sarah Winters, my ex-girlfriend from high school. 5 years hadn't changed her much. She still had that same perfectly maintained appearance. And now she was strutting around with a man's arm length in hers, looking even more proud than I remembered. "You remember James, don't you?" Sarah's red lips curved into a smirk as she gestured to the man beside her. "My boyfriend? The son of this bank's CEO?" She paused for effect, her manicured nails digging slightly into James's expensive suit. "Quite different from you, right?" "Ugh, dating someone like you back then, even if I was young, was the biggest mistake of my life. Could you move aside? I don't want to catch your poverty." She punctuated her words by shoving my shoulder roughly. Something in me snapped as memories of my high school days came flooding back. The whispers in the hallways, the pitying looks, the way she turned her back on me when I needed support the most. But I wasn't that same naive teenager anymore. "Alright," I said quietly, straightening my own custom-tailored jacket. I made up my mind. What I said next would make my ex and her heir boyfriend turn pale. But perhaps I should start from the beginning. My name is Tyler Harrison, and I was 17 when my life changed completely. Growing up, I was the definition of privilege, though I didn't recognize it at the time. My father was the CEO of Harrison Systems, a successful IT company that had made its mark in the corporate world. Our house in the exclusive Oakwood district was filled with everything a kid could want. The latest gaming consoles, designer clothes, and a garage full of luxury cars. Whatever I desired was mine for the asking. I never once questioned whether I deserved it all. I had always assumed I'd follow in my father's footsteps, taking over the company and making it even more successful. It seemed like a perfect plan, laid out before me like a golden path. I didn't realize then how naive that assumption was, how little I understood about the real responsibilities of leadership. My vague vision of the future impressed my peers at Westbrook Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the state. Given my top academic performance, I maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA without much effort. It seemed entirely achievable. Teachers would often comment on my natural leadership abilities, but looking back, I wonder if they were really seeing leadership, or just the confidence that comes from never having faced real adversity. Being the CEO's son naturally earned me respect at school. I was quite popular, though I never stopped to question whether people liked me for who I was or what I represented. The expensive parties I hosted at our mansion, the casual way I could pick up the tab for the entire groups at restaurants. The new car I got for my 16th birthday, it all seemed normal to me then. Then I met someone from a similar background, someone who seemed to understand my world perfectly. Sarah Winters was the daughter of the CEO of Winter Beauty, the well-known cosmetic company that dominated the high-end makeup market. She carried herself with the same confidence I had, but there was something more to her. She was genuinely knowledgeable about her father's industry, often bringing sample products from unreleased lines to school. Her natural-looking makeup always drew attention from other girls, and she had a way of making everyone feel like they were in on a secret when she shared beauty tips. She wasn't just beautiful, she was intelligent too, maintaining grades that rivaled mine while juggling her responsibilities as head of the student council. We shared the same advanced placement classes, often partnering for projects where we consistently earned top marks. Given our similar backgrounds and abilities, everyone said we made the perfect couple. The teachers smiled approvingly when we walked down the hallways together, and our parents seemed pleased when we started dating. It felt like the natural order of things, two future CEOs finding each other in high school. I can still remember the day Sarah first confessed her feelings. We were in the school's courtyard after a student council meeting, setting sun painting everything in warm golden light. She tucked a strand of her perfectly styled hair behind her ear, looking unusually vulnerable. "Tyler, you're different from the other guys," she had said, her voice soft but confident. "You're fun to talk to, smart and handsome. That's why I fell for you. We understand each other, don't we? We both know what it's like to have these expectations on our shoulders." Those words had made my heart soar. Here was someone who truly understood me, or so I thought. Sarah would often talk about our future, painting pictures of business empire mergers and power couple dynamics. "If you're going to be a CEO, maybe I'll become one too," she would say, her eyes sparkling with ambition. "Wouldn't it be cool to be a power couple? We could revolutionize both tech and beauty industries together." She was such a sweet girl from back then, always supporting my dreams and sharing her own. We'd spend hours discussing our plans for the future, how we'd innovated our respective family businesses, I would make our mark in the world. But I would soon learn that all my wealth and the admiration I received were things given to me by others, and this lesson would come the hard way. During my sophomore year, everything changed. I was sitting in advanced economics, half listening to a lecture on market volatility, when my phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made my blood run cold. Harrison Systems under major cyber attack, customer data compromised. I remember staring at those words, unable to process their meaning at first. Then more alerts started coming in, each worse than the last. Harrison Systems, my father's company, had fallen victim to a massive cyber attack, resulting in the leak of crucial corporate information and customer data. This wasn't just some minor security breach. It was a catastrophic event that would reshape my entire world. The next few weeks were a blur of media coverage and mounting pressure. Our company's name was dragged through the mud on every news channel. Harrison System fails to protect customer data, screamed one headline after another. Social media was even worse, with thousands of angry customers demanding answers. This incident destroyed the company's reputation and put its very survival at risk. It was apparently part of a series of international cyber attacks targeting various organizations during that period. That didn't matter to the public. Being an IT company meant we were held to a higher standard, and the backlash was merciless. I remember sitting in our living room watching my father field endless phone calls, his face growing more haggard with each passing day. The questions about our security measures and staff competence were relentless. How could an IT company let this happen? Where were the safeguards? What about the redundancy systems? While the hackers were clearly at fault, they were later identified as part of a sophisticated international crime syndicate. I couldn't understand why our company had to bear such responsibility for failing to prevent it. Even with insurance coverage, the losses were astronomical. I watched as clients terminated contracts one after another, each cancellation another blow to the company my father had built from nothing. The investment required for system reinforcement was staggering. I overheard my parents talking late one night, the word bankruptcy echoing through our suddenly too quiet house. It was the first time I'd ever heard fear in my father's voice. In response to the crisis, my father did something I never expected. He went around personally apologizing to everyone, clients, employees, stakeholders. He reduced his own salary to barely above minimum wage to preserve the company and protect employee salaries. I watched as he sold his prized card collection, canceled his construction on our planned vacation home, and moved his office from the executive suite to a small room near the IT department to be more hands-on with security improvements. One evening, after another grueling day of damage control, I confronted him in his home office. The room that had once been filled with impressive awards and certificates now only held his laptop and a growing stack of crisis management reports. "Dad, why are you going to such lengths?" I demanded. "It wasn't even your fault. Those hackers are the ones who should be apologizing, not you." He looked up from his work, and for the first time, I noticed the gray that had crept into his hair over the past few weeks. Setting down his pen, he asked me something that would change my perspective forever.
"You know why CEOs are wealthy, Tyler?"
"Because they're important?" I answered without hesitation, repeating what I always believed. It seemed obvious. They ran everything, so of course they deserve the best of everything. My father shook his head slowly, a sad smile playing at his lips.
"CEOs are paid well because of the crucial responsibility,"
he explained, his voice tired but firm.
"They must take accountability for everything that happens in the company and protect their employees. That's why they're compensated accordingly. Even when we're not at fault, taking responsibility is part of being a CEO."
He stood up and walked to the window, looking out the garden my mother had planted when I was young.
"Every person in this company has families depending on them, dreams they're working towards. When they chose to work for Harrison Systems, they put their trust in me. I can't betray that trust by running away when things get tough."
I stood there speechless. All this time, I've been thinking about being a CEO in terms of the privileges it brought. The money, the respect, power. I had no idea my father approached his work with such philosophy, such dedication to the people who depended on him. Here I was, thinking being a CEO would be cool, that it was my birthright to step into that role someday. What a child I'd been. These words changed my perspective on society. My next lesson would be the harsh reality of relationships, and would have come from the person I least expected. It happened on a crisp autumn morning, the kind that usually meant coffee dates and walks through the park with Sarah. Instead, I found myself alone in the school courtyard, the same place where she had first confessed her feelings to me. The irony wasn't lost on me. "And let me be clear," Sarah declared, her voice carrying none of the warmth I'd grown used to over the past year. She stood several feet away from me, as if proximity to my newly acquired misfortune might be contagious. The designer scarf around her neck fluttered in the breeze, a gift from my last shopping trip with her. "You and I aren't a good match anymore. We're living in different worlds now, aren't we?" The news about my father's company situation had spread through the school like wildfire. Being the daughter of another CEO, Sarah had access to even more detailed information than most. I could see it in her eyes. She already calculated exactly how this would affect her social standing. If people found out that Winter Beauty's heiress was dating someone from the disgraced Harrison Systems, it could hurt our reputation too. She continued, examining her manicured nails. Daddy's been asking questions about us, you know. He's concerned about the optics. I couldn't say anything in response. What was there to say? The girl who had once told me she loved me for my mind and personality was now openly admitting that those things meant nothing compared to social status and financial stability. So don't try to contact me anymore, she finished, adjusting her designer bag on her shoulder. It's better this way. Clean break and all that. As she turned to leave, a memory flashed through my mind. Sarah on our first date, nervously tucking her hair behind her ears, she confessed her feelings. Tyler, you're fun to talk to. Smart and handsome. That's why I fell for you, she had said smilingly back then, her cheeks flushed with genuine emotion. That girl was nowhere to be found now. In her place stood someone who had learned her father's business lessons all too well. Cut losses quickly, maintain an image at all costs, never let emotions interfere with practical decisions. Was it all about status and money after all? Had every moment, every laugh, every shared dream be nothing but a carefully calculated investment in her future? No, there was no point in thinking about it anymore. Some questions are better left unanswered. I told myself this was just another life lesson and quietly stepped aside, watching as she walked away without a backward glance. The autumn leaves crunched on her expensive boots, and I wondered if she remembered how we used to jump in leaf piles together, not caring about getting her clothes dirty. The next few weeks at school were studying social dynamics. People who used to hang on my every word now found reasons to avoid eye contact. Lunch invitations dried up. Group projects became awkward as former friends suddenly remembered they had already promised to work with someone else. But surprisingly, not everyone abandoned ship. Mark Chen, a quiet kid from my AP physics class who I'd barely noticed before, started sharing his lunch table with me.
You know,
He said one day, between bites of his homemade sandwich.
my dad lost his job when I was 12. Small company, bad economy. Everyone at my old school treated me like I had the plague.
He shrugged, pushing his glasses up his nose.
Their loss. Dad started his own business 2 years later, doing better than ever now. Sometimes you have to hit bottom to learn how to climb.
His words stuck with me as I thought about what should be my priority now. The answer, when it came, was crystal clear. My family. I spent several nights researching, making plans, and gathering my courage before approaching my parents in our living room. Mom was doing her best to hide her worry behind a magazine, while Dad pored over another stack of reports. Dad? Mom? I began, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I want to join the company. They both looked up, startled by the determination in my voice. Can I join even if I drop out of high school? I mean, I don't need a salary, I just want to learn. Would that be possible? The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's magazine slipped from her fingers, and my father's pen stopped its endless scratching. Tyler, my mother began, her voice trembling slightly. Sweetheart, your education. High school and college can wait, I interrupted, words tumbling out in a rush. They're not going anywhere. Once the company collapses, there would be no bringing it back. All those employees who stuck with us, their families, we can't let them down. My father stood up slowly, studying my face with an intensity I'd never seen before.
You understand what you're saying? This isn't a game, Tyler. Once you step into this world, there's no going back to being a regular teenager. I met his gaze steadily. I stopped being a regular teenager the day I realized what real responsibility means, Dad. So I made the decision to drop out of my sophomore year. The paperwork was filed the next day. Word spread through school like a viral tweet, thanks to classmates who knew about my family's situation. Naturally, Sarah found out too. I still remember my last day at Westbrook Academy with perfect clarity. My remaining friends gathered to see me off, offering awkward but sincere good wishes. Even some teachers came to express their support, but I could see the concern in their eyes. As I cleaned out my locker, Sarah's voice carried down the hallway, deliberately loud enough for me to hear. Well, I guess he couldn't afford to stay in school anymore, she remarked in her new circle of friends. It's sad, really, seeing someone fall so far. Her words seemed to echo unusually loud in the empty corridor, each syllable dripping with false sympathy. I closed my locker for the last time, the metallic claim puncturing the end of my life as a regular teenager. But instead of feeling defeated, I felt strangely liberated. Sarah's words, which once might have crushed me, now barely registered. I had bigger things to worry about than high school drama. What followed was an intense period of learning the growth that made my AP classes look like kindergarten. Having known nothing beyond the sheltered world of private school privilege, I first had to learn the proper business etiquette. It was a crash course in everything from how to properly bow an apology to Japanese clients.
Angle, exactly 45 degrees. Duration, 3 seconds. The correct way to present a business card. 2 hands, card facing the recipient. The company had split into 2 main divisions, one focused on rebuilding our reputation, and another continuing our core system development work. With no IT knowledge beyond setting up my gaming console, I naturally joined the recovery team. My first week was spent just learning how to properly answer the phone and transfer calls, skills I never needed when all I did was make them.
Again,
Mr. Yamamoto, my mentor, would say patiently.
remember, when apologizing, your tone must convey sincere regret without self-pity. The client's anger is valid, but our focus must be on solutions.
I was drilled relentlessly on the details of the cyber attack, forced to understand every technical aspect so I could explain it clearly to angry clients. I learned about the company's reflection points, specific plans for security enhancement, and most importantly, how to convey complex information in simple terms. Days turned into weeks as I accompanied senior employees on countless apology visits to the clients. I watched and learned from every interaction, how they maintained composure into the face of hostility, how they acknowledged mistakes without making excuses, how they turned confrontational meetings to productive discussions. Mr. Chen, our head of client relations, became my second mentor.
Watch their body languages,
He would whisper as we left meetings.
Did you notice how the client's shoulders relax when we show them the new security protocols? That's your opening. When they feel heard and secure, that's when you can start rebuilding trust.
As soon as my training ended, I was sent alone to smaller subcontractors. They needed all hands on deck, and I was now a pair of hands regardless of my age. My first solo meeting was with the owner of our local IT consulting firm, a man who had known my father for years.
So, they sent the CEO's son to clean up Daddy's mess?
He had sneered when I walked in.
What are you, 15?
17, sir, I corrected politely, maintaining eye contact despite my racing heart. And I'm here as a Harrison Systems representative, not as anyone's son. I understand your concerns about a security breach, and I'd like to walk you through the comprehensive measures we've implemented to ensure it never happens again. Though I'd already apologized hundreds of times during training, we kept scheduling meetings to maintain relationships and promote our improved products and security measures. Despite my age, I was treated as a regular employee by clients, which meant no special treatment, no sympathy, and no excuses accepted. I faced harsh criticism that made Sarah's comments seem gentle in comparison. There were intense questioning sessions that left me drenched in sweat, and difficult demands that seemed impossible to meet. Some companies told us never to show our faces again, their security teams practically escorting us out of the building. There were times I wanted to run away, to return to the simple life of a high school student when the worst crisis was a failed test or a canceled date. But every time that thought crossed my mind, I remembered the faces of our employees in the cafeteria, discussing their children's college plans or their elderly parents' medical bills. I thought of my father's words about responsibility and leadership. This determination kept me going, even in the darkest days. One particularly memorable meeting changed everything. I was scheduled to meet with Winter Beauty's IT department. Yes, Sarah's family's company. They had been a minor client of ours, using some of our security software for the customer database. I hadn't expected to run into Sarah or her father, given that this was a routine technical meeting. The universe, it seemed, had other plans. I was in the middle of presenting our new security features when the door opened, and Gerald Winters, Sarah's father, walked in. The room immediately tensed. He stopped short when he saw me, recognition flickering across his face.
Young Mr. Harrison,
He said, his tone carefully neutral.
I wasn't aware you had joined the company.
6 months ago, sir, I replied, maintaining my professional demeanor despite the sweat beginning to bead on my forehead. I'm here to discuss our enhanced security protocols and the measures we've implemented to prevent any future breaches. He studied me for a long moment, then took a seat at the back of the room.
Continue,
He said simply. I took a deep breath and picked up where I left off, explaining our new multi-layer authentication system and real-time threat detection protocols. Years later, Mr. Winters would tell me that it was my composure that day that first impressed him. As I wrapped up the presentation, Mr. Winters raised his hand.
I have a question,
He said, leaning forward.
but not about your security systems. Why are you here, Tyler? Really? A young man from your background could have easily found a more comfortable path.
The room fell silent. I could feel every eye on me as I considered my response. Because I believe in taking responsibility, sir, I answered honestly. Not just for our mistakes, but for making things right. Every client who trusted us deserves nothing less than our complete dedication to protecting their data.
He nodded slowly.
Then did something completely unexpected. He pulled out his phone and made a call right there in the meeting room.
Janet, cancel my next appointment. Get me Harrison Sr. on the line. We need to talk about expanding our contract.
That meeting marked a turning point for Harrison Systems. Word spread that Winter Beauty was not only staying with us, but increasing their business.
Other companies began to reconsider their positions. Slowly but surely, we began to rebuild. But the real surprise came 3 years later, when Mr. Winters approached us with an unexpected problem. Winter Beauty's own systems had been targeted by hackers, but thankfully, our new security measures had prevented any serious breach. However, the attempt had exposed weaknesses in their internal IT infrastructure. "We need help," Mr. Winters admitted during an emergency meeting with my father. "Not just with security, but with modernizing our entire digital infrastructure. Your son," he nodded at me, "has proven that Harrison Systems doesn't just talk about responsibility, you live it. We want to bring you on as our primary IT partner for a complete digital transformation." The contract would not only secure Harrison Systems' recovery, but launch us into a new era of growth. The once disgraced company was now being sought out specifically for our security expertise and commitment to client protection. The irony of helping to protect Sarah's family company wasn't lost on me. Life, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of humor. Which brings us back to that day at the bank, 5 years after I dropped out of high school. I'd stood there in my tailored suit, facing Sarah and her banker boyfriend, about to reveal why I was really there. "Actually," I said, straightening my tie, "I'm here to close my account." Sarah let out a dismissive laugh. "Close your account? What, all $50 of it?" I smiled, remembering everything that had led to this moment. "Not quite. I'm closing my private investment account, the one with the $100 million balance." The color drained from their faces. James, who had been smirking throughout our entire interaction, suddenly looked like he swallowed something unpleasant. That's impossible," Sarah stammered. Your company became one of the leading cybersecurity firms in the country?" I finished for her. "Yes. Funny how things work out. Taking responsibility and actually working to solve problems tends to have that effect. Oh, and I should thank you, Sarah. Your father's support really helped turn things around for us." James cleared his throat nervously.
I should go check on something."
He quickly detached himself from Sarah's arm and practically fled towards his father's office. Sarah stood there, her perfectly maintained composure cracking for the first time in years. "Tyler, I didn't mean..." "It's fine," I interrupted gently. "Really, everything worked out exactly as it should have. By the way, congratulations on becoming CEO of Winter Beauty. That joke you made in high school about being a CEO couple might not be so far from reality anymore." Sarah stood frozen in the marble lobby, her usual confidence shattered. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the girl I'd known in high school, the one who dreamed of changing the world, before she learned to prioritize status over substance. "I hear you're doing excellent work in Winter Beauty," I continued, checking my watch. "The new eco-friendly product line was a brilliant move. Your father speaks highly of your leadership." You talked to my father?" she asked, her voice small. "Monthly strategy meetings," I nodded. "The digital transformation project requires close coordination between our companies. He's quite proud of how you modernized their marketing approach." A complex mix of emotions crossed her face. Regret, embarrassment, and something that might have been an admiration. "Tyler, about what happened in high school..." I held up a hand, stopping her. "The past is the past, Sarah. We were both different people then. You taught me an important lesson about the real meaning of value, both in business and in life. In a way, I should thank you." She blinked rapidly, her perfectly mascaraed eyes glistening slightly. "You've changed so much." "We all have," I replied, thinking of the long journey from the naive teenager to who I'd become. That's what growing up is supposed to be about, isn't it? Learning, evolving, becoming better versions of ourselves. A discreet cough interrupted us. My private banker stood nearby, holding a leather portfolio.
"Mr. Harrison, your paperwork is waiting whenever you're prepared to proceed."
I nodded to him, then turned back to Sarah. "I should go. It was interesting to see you again." As I turned to leave, Sarah called out, "Tyler? For what it's worth, I'm sorry, and I'm glad things worked out for you. You deserve it." I paused, looking back at her. You know what the funny thing is? Back then, I thought losing everything, the money, the status, you, was the worst thing that could happen to me. Turns out it was the best. It taught me what really matters. Walking away, I couldn't help but smile how life had come full circle. 5 years ago, I stood in these same halls, a broken teenager who lost everything that seemed important. Now I returned as someone who understood that true value isn't stored in bank accounts, but in the responsibilities we accept, the challenges we overcome, and the people we become along the way. My phone buzzed, a message from my father about our upcoming board meeting. There was still so much work to do, challenges to face, and growth ahead. But now I understood something my 17-year-old self never could. Success isn't about avoiding failures or maintaining appearances. It's about having the courage to face difficulties head on, the integrity to take responsibility when things go wrong, and the wisdom to learn from every experience, even the painful ones. As I stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from privileged teenager to humble dropout, from trainee to respected business leader. Each step had shaped me, each obstacle had strengthened me, and each failure had taught me something valuable. The sleek company car waited at the curb, its driver holding the door open. I had another meeting to attend. This time was a promising cybersecurity startup we were considering partnering with. Their founder was a former victim of identity theft who turned his experience into innovation. Much like our own crisis had transformed into our greatest strength. That's the thing about life. Sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes. If you're brave enough to learn from them and determined enough to keep moving forward. As I settled into the car's leather seat, I smiled, thinking about how far we'd all come. The future held endless possibilities, and this time, I was ready for whatever challenges it might bring.